So that might change it. You just let me know. Rick or Ian, if you just give me an indication. Still no sound.
No sound, man. Yeah, yeah.
Sound.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure now, once again, if the microphone is not working. Then I've got the onboard sound again, so if the mouse clicking is a bit much, Ian, then just let me know. So hey guys, thanks for joining the stream tonight. Sorry for that, once again, getting the mic a bit messed up. For when we watch this in the repeat, I'll put some timestamps at specific questions in the comments section below, and then you'll be able to click on a specific timestamp and watch the question and answer to that. Thanks Riku, thanks Ian. So yeah, this live stream is going to be quite laid back, really just a Q&A style, nothing hectic. More just to catch up with sort of friends and people that have sort of followed my journey. It's been very myasthenia based for the first couple of months on YouTube, and was really because I wanted to get in to try and help people, show them sort of what information I looked at, and just sort of pass on that information to people so they would be able to unpackage it and sort of learn for themselves what they could apply to try and improve their health. So yeah, the start of this one, as I said, very relaxed. I do have a very brief summary of what I want to do tonight, but let's cut across to that. Just check again, the sound's still good, Ian. As I change screens, I just want to make sure the sound's still fine. But yeah, just going to have questions. Some people have sent me some questions, and then we're going to rely a lot on chat questions. So if anybody is here and they want to ask questions in the chat, please do so. Cool. Okay, so starting off, I see Ian's there, Riku's there. Anyone else joining, you want to say how's it, you go for it. I know Toby's also coming through tonight, Fagan's coming through, so yeah, it'll be cool to just get a broad range of questions from everyone. Thanks guys for the response there. Let's go back to that. So yeah, I know I'll just wait for guys to load up in the chat there, but start off with, yeah, why did we do the YouTube story? So it was about 3 months ago. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and not because I've had some, amazing information that no one else has got, but really, really, I've looked at stuff and really just unpackaged it over 4 years, and that's the stuff that I'm working on the side, preparing some videos. So what I'm going to call is sort of my myasthenia top resources. And once again, that's giving the information out to other people, or just passing on what I think is valuable information, and then they can read through that, and hopefully that can help them improve as much as it helped me. Yeah, Riku, I don't know if I saw your question on Instagram. I know I saw Justin's, so if I don't have it, maybe just type it through in the chat there. Yeah, I'll do a mix, Riku, so quite a lot from the chat. Because it's just easier for me to read off the chat questions than to pull out my phone to get the questions from Instagram. I'll try and do some of those by memory. So yeah, Toby as well, Ian, if you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to fire away. So yeah, it's been really MG focused, and the point of that, just to explain to friends that are watching, is really because obviously that's what I've dealt with in the last few years. I have the myasthenia gravis and then the thyroid issues. The thyroid, I had some incorrect medication, and I'm still ironing out to improve off that. So that's why I'm not coming off too strongly, I think, in terms of thyroid and overall health, because we're still getting through one or two things with that. But myasthenia, I saw some real relief from symptoms. And that's why I have more confidence to sort of speak out in that. Yeah, I'm still working through quite a few issues, and obviously my plan has always been long-term health. So it was never for me trying to be well last year or this year. It's health for me is just it's long-term. So I think for me it's still the same mission. I've got some videos from when I first spoke in 2016. Looked nothing like I look now. I had terrible symptoms, but I was already eating well at that stage, and it's good to have that video of saying this is my plan back then, stuck with it, and now we're starting to see the results. So yeah, let's get into some questions. I know Justin asked me on Instagram. He said, what's some of your biggest struggles day to day? And for me at the moment, it's really been a pretty tough winter. So winter here in the southern hemisphere, March to around about now, we sort of headed into warmer weather at the moment. And this was the first year I've really struggled with cold. And it's quite ironic because I got the diagnosis of Graves' disease. So I should be, excessively overactive. But at the moment, I'm really showing signs of underactive thyroid. So it was very difficult winter for me. And just to sort of function, everything sort of slowed down. My temperature was freezing, heart rate very low, just cold, digestion sluggish. So on the day-to-day basis with that, I really struggled with that. And that's, I think, sort of held me back or stopped me from really, taking on life this winter. But really looking forward to summer now. I know it's going to be a period of more improvement for me. I've made it through the hardest spot of winter. And in summer now, if I can really push on making improvements, get myself into a better position by April 2020, the start of our next winter, then I know I can keep moving forward. So I keep applying things that I learn, keep refining what I'm doing. I know I can tick off the thyroid issues and then progress into some of the lifestyle things I want to do. So in terms of training, working, and just living a healthy, I want to say normal life, but beyond that, really just enjoy what I'm doing because my health is stable. So yeah, the day to day, that's the biggest struggle. Besides that, no real negative thoughts or issues for me. Obviously, it's not always fun, but I've got a very long-term mindset. So day to day, if things aren't going great for me, it's not the end of the world. Like I've said in some of my other videos, I've sort of taken this time out to really focus on myself. I'm fortunate, don't have any dependents or anything like that, so I can really just focus on getting well and then move forward once I'm doing a bit better. So I'm going to go to Riku. Riku's first question here. Can you talk about Peat Milk if it's not too hectic for YouTube? So I'm not quite sure what Riku means by Peat Milk. But Peat is a biologist. He's got a PhD in biology. He's written a number of books about women's health, about hormones, and he writes articles still to this day. It's been a big resource for me. And Ray is very pro calcium for its metabolic characteristics. And he believes dairy is a good source of easily digestible protein and calcium. So Ray recommends a decent amount of milk every day if you can stomach that. So it's one thing that I've sort of changed this year, trying to increase my metabolism, as crazy as that sounds, given I had a Graves' disease diagnosis. I've been quite big on consuming milk of late, where counter to what most people think, saying dairy is inflammatory or dairy is not good for you. It's been part of sort of what I do is try not to look at the standard of what everybody is saying and really unpack what I'm doing for myself and if that's working for me. So I'm not quite sure if that answers Riku's question, but for me, dairy, I haven't had digestion issues with it. And then broader on that, if I can elaborate, I was always scared to drink the best milk that I could find, and I still do, where I can get high quality organic or grass fed A2 dairy, I'll definitely buy that. But it's not always available, so in a pinch, would I consume other milk? Up until fairly recently, probably no. But as I've got more or less, let's say, like strict or religious with certain dietary ideas, I will have other milk to an extent sometimes. But I try and keep where I can control it to the best source possible that I can get. Okay, Riku referring to an article about sweet milk. So depending on what you read, I know it's Barry Sears that is the author of the book called The Zone, or Enter the Zone, so based off the Zone diet. He likes people to eat in a sort of balanced macronutrient style. So you're talking about a portion of carbohydrate, a portion of fat, and a portion of protein at each meal. And Barry Sears on the Zone diet says that milk is a well-balanced meal by itself. So it's got equivalent parts of protein and carbohydrate, and if depending on full fat or not, but it's all right, enough fat there by itself. So he would say milk by itself, that's going to keep your insulin levels fairly flat, not going to spike them. So that's a great snack to have by itself. If you want more detail on that, obviously look at the book, and he talks about keeping your insulin and glycogen levels balanced out, and that will keep your hormones balanced and your performance more optimal. Ray Peat, it's slightly different ideas. He's saying certain proteins actually raise, contrary to what you think, certain proteins raise insulin more than others. So he's saying eggs, for example, and dairy can be insulinogenic, so raise insulin. So you might need more carbohydrate with that to keep your blood sugar sustained. So Ray's really about keeping your blood sugar sort of constant, but in a different way to what Barry Sears is talking about in the Zone. So Ray would recommend maybe a 2-to-1 ratio of, for example, not saying you would, but a higher ratio of carbohydrates to protein. So sometimes it would be good to put some honey or have a piece of fruit or even some sugar in your milk, just to get that carbohydrate level up, and really raise more certain carbohydrates to lower stress hormones such as cortisol. And that's why he would generally talk about sweeter milk or honey or fruit or things like that along with your proteins to balance out those hormone levels, because too much protein by itself is saying it's going to raise cortisol, and if you don't have enough carbohydrates, you're going to turn tissue or amino acids into glycogen in place of those lack of carbohydrates. So hopefully that's not too much rubbish, and hopefully that answers your question, Riku. Let's see if there's another one before that. Ian says, what lifestyle factors can anyone consider to improve general health? Very broad question. But for me, there's a lot of cliches or stereotypical ideas when people say, health is, eating well, exercising and sleeping well, and then everything's good. But for me, it's not. It's more simple than we think, but it's also a lot more complicated, especially when you're unhealthy. So if you're a healthy person, like you haven't had any illness or anything, and you're still fairly young, it's not. Then your metabolism works well. You're more resilient to stress because your protective steroid hormones are still pretty high in production. But as you age, stress can take more of a toll on you, with your cortisol levels staying high, but your protective steroid hormones lowering as you go from 20 to 30 to 40 and beyond. So for me, and it's based off a lot of the things I've read over the last few years, exercise, everyone thinks is healthy, running or lifting weights or whatever is healthy, but I don't know, we just sort of accept that a person in good shape or a person that can run a marathon, for example, is healthy, but we don't consider that maybe they're not healthy, maybe that's not optimum health. So for me, a healthy lifestyle, depending on where you are, and it's obviously very individual. If you're really stressed out a healthy lifestyle will be, resting enough, and then I think basically getting the sunshine during the daytime and a walk, if you can manage that. But if you're in good health, and you've got enough nutrition, you have enough of these protective steroid hormones, then something like resistant weight training, for example, might be good for you to build muscle mass, and muscle mass as you age can be protective. So for me, I've just sort of changed views over basically the last year, just really thinking for the first time, is breathless exercise healthy? And I'm leaning towards not as much as we think. So I actually think it's probably more unhealthy than people realize, especially if you're in ill health. Yes, you feel good after you exercise. Everyone gets that sort of rush of, after you ran or after you did a hectic workout. But, stress hormones can be deceiving. Adrenaline, cortisol can make you feel good, but will also hide sort of how tired or run down you are. So for me at the moment, I haven't done much exercise of late. This year I've really just, since I've started working, tried to do a bit more walking because my previous job allowed me to walk quite a bit outside. My new job, being an office job, doesn't, so I have to make time to walk outside. So for me, a walk in nature, just up the mountain, not hectic, maybe 2 kilometers max, as often as I can. And now becoming summer, would like to do that a bit more. And then this is also what's going to be cool, I think, about this channel, just to progress. So as I get healthier, then I can start doing more things, maybe a bit more weight training, and head towards some of the goals I have, with still keeping a health and longevity perspective behind that. I'm going to talk, I'll do Toby's question and I'll come back to Riku for another question. Toby says, can you talk about your opinion on why MG, or Myasthenia Gravis, can be related to a manganese deficiency? That's quite a difficult one. So the books that I did read, the one is called, I might mix up the order, but it's called manganese, the thymus, and Myasthenia Gravis. It's those three things, but I'm not sure of the order. In that book, they talk about the thymus being important for the immune system, commonly thought about in medical terms being really important when you're younger, but then as you age, not as important. However, this book speaks about that it's still really important for the metabolism of calcium and for manganese. So it was one of the reasons why I personally didn't have my thymus gland taken out, because I was worried about how am I going to be able to metabolize manganese effectively, calcium possibly as well, going forward for the rest of my life. And in that book, they actually speak about there's a real variance in how people respond to thymectomy, so the removal of a thymus gland, and it's one of the treatment options for myasthenia. And so in that book, they actually say, why is there this variance in outcomes from the thymectomy or from the operation? And the author suggests that it's possible that when they do the operation, sometimes pieces of the thymus gland or pockets of tissue of thymus gland are left behind, and just the right amount can get left behind to stop most of the autoimmune reaction, but still enough that can process manganese. Now, obviously, I don't have any inside information on that, but I thought it was fascinating that there's a lot of speculation of why it's working or why it doesn't work for everyone. And this author was just presenting an opinion of, it's possible that manganese is still needed for the body to function. So if you take this gland away, some people might struggle for certain reasons. So what do I think the relationship is with manganese? There is some relationship between the thymus gland, manganese, and myasthenia. Why a manganese deficiency? For me, this is obviously a hypothesis, is iron fortification. I know, I think someone can correct me, Toby, if you know if the United States does iron fortify their grains, for example, their cereals, store-bought bread and things like that. I know in South Africa and a lot of third world countries, iron fortification is done. And it's often counterproductive. So if you are getting this unbound iron, it can be being stored in your body and displacing other minerals. So minerals such as manganese, zinc or copper. And obviously all these minerals have to interrelate. And I'm not sure what leads, to this manganese deficiency. But for me it was quite interesting, and I had some success with taking certain supplements. But it is difficult, and it's advisable to work with somebody who is testing your mineral levels to see what minerals you do need, and try to get a balance. And it's easier probably to get a balance through food, because your body will sort of absorb what it needs, and not or change the absorption rate based on your needs. But when you're using supplements, obviously you're getting a high dosage of a particular mineral. Directly, I know for certain enzymes, manganese can step in for magnesium. So hypothesis once again, could be stressed out ridiculously, be low magnesium, and then maybe your manganese supplements in those enzymes. Yeah, no, we're still good. Just keeps going on, off, on, off.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just tell me when it's back.
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. I don't know why it's just connecting, disconnecting. I think I'm pretty much finished. Yeah, sorry, it keeps dropping and coming back. So hopefully it's fine now. I'm gonna keep going if it does. Yeah, sorry guys. I don't know why it's doing this. If you just hang. Oh my word. Okay, I've changed up the internet. I'm going to keep going for now. If there are any issues, we might have to call it, but we're good for now. So thanks for everyone just for staying patient. Toby, I think that pretty much sums it up for manganese. If you have anything else on that, you can let me know, but I think pretty much good on that. Riku says, how have your energy levels been at work? That's quite a good question. For me, I've been very fortunate that my work is flexible, so I don't go in at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I haven't really struggled with energy levels at work. I haven't really napped during the day at all. So I haven't always been able to get to sleep in the evenings. Sometimes I wouldn't really call it insomnia, but struggle to get to bed early. But I think now with summertime, once again, being outside a bit more vitamin D, a bit more sunlight, that should improve. It has been better already in spring. But in general, my energy level's fine. As I mentioned, though, it's just the cold, so it hasn't been enjoyable to sit there, and really it doesn't matter sort of what I was wearing or what I was eating sort of thing. My feet and hands just extremely cold in the winter time. So that was not enjoyable at all. But in terms of energy levels, no real problem. I mean, I'm not running around, doing crazy exercise or anything, but I haven't had, it's not like I leave work to go sleep or something like that. So I've been decent in that regard. But like I said, everything's pretty managed. I mean, I don't go out or anything, during the week. Pretty much stick to work, and that's it. So that's been all right. Relative to a healthy person, you might say, I'm a bit not as active, but in terms of energy, not too bad actually, especially where I've come from. So the last 2-3 years, I've obviously had some periods of real fatigue and real like uncomfortable, in terms of lack of energy and just sleeping all the time. So it hasn't been that bad. Pretty much I try and get a decent night's rest, not waking up too early yet, but then I'm good to go for the day. So thanks for that, Rick. If the chat is still going, you guys can post it up there. I know Fagan had a couple of questions. I don't know if she's going to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll have to look on my phone now for them. Toby then asked, can you talk about the difference between fitness and health? All I can talk about is my opinion. I just think that it's just, we sort of assume sort of things. So we assume that fit people are healthy, and it's just been challenging, or I've been challenging myself the last 6 months especially. Is fitness really health? Should people be super lean, low body fat percentages? Should you be gaining weight and cutting, as a bodybuilder, or should you be, training high intensity in an indoor environment, for example? I'm not convinced that the health trend, which is relatively new. So if you look at bodybuilding, I think that was big first in the 60s or 70s. Anyone can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then the gym or health and fitness movement only really started after that. Even if you go back and look at sport, professional sport is a really new thing as well. Or relatively new, depending on what sport. But yeah, training, and that sort of then progressed down towards health. So people just thought, well, if professional sportsmen must be healthy, filter down to a normal person, then you must also do this training. But I don't think that that's the case. So yeah, the difference between fitness and health, I'm assuming, is longevity and just being able to function. I think it would be a good idea to get your health in order before you attempt to be fit. But then when you are wanting to be fit, then you probably need to decide what your goals are. Obviously, if you want to run a marathon, then you're going to run a marathon, whether it's the best thing for you or not. But there's certain things that you can do to realize that, what can sort of protect you from these certain stresses in exercise. And certain exercise can be anti-stress. So like I said, depending on where you're at, walking first, which I'm still at that stage now. And that's what I'm trying to encourage people with, is it's really dependent on where you're at. And obviously someone who hasn't had an illness, it's difficult to relate to that. But yeah, you've got to walk before you can run. And then you've got to decide how much running is actually good for you. I'm not sure if the chat has reconnected. If somebody could just let me know if the chat has reconnected. Otherwise, I'll just go to my phone to answer a couple questions. So a lot of people ask me like specific, dietary questions. And I don't know if you've noticed, but in my style of talking about things, I try to speak more general. And that's actually because I've realized the more people learn, the more you realize that you don't really know. And so you need to be careful, obviously, when issuing or making blanket statements. So Fagan asked, what do you think about fermented foods such as sauerkraut, especially for people with digestive problems? And you can come from different angles on this. Most people always say in conventional health circles, probiotics are pretty big right now. You got to look at, why people are selling probiotics. Obviously, there's a lot of digestion problems. Were people using probiotics before? Were the foods high in probiotics? It's very difficult to know the answers to some of these questions. And when I started my, my health sort of journey, sort of thought, probiotics, kefir, probiotic supplements, sauerkraut and those things, it's all good because you read so many articles saying that, probiotics and these things are really good for you, and there's all this positive buzz about it. But for me at the moment, I'm not too personally pro probiotics. And I think a lot of that is because everyone, or for me, I think, is because everybody's system, or my system especially, is quite slow. And if you've got digestion problems and you've got SIBO or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, then if you're taking probiotics, those could get stuck actually in your small intestine and not make it to the colon. And you really want your stomach and your small intestine to be pretty much microbe free. And that's where you're supposed to absorb and digest food. You don't really want to be fermenting products in your stomach or your small intestine. The fermentation only supposed to be happening if at all in your large intestine. So I know some people do state it, and I think they probably could state it more, is you should probably check out whether you have serious gut imbalances or bacterial overgrowth in your intestine, possibly before just taking over-the-counter probiotics. Like, it's one thing I probably made the mistake on, is just going to the supplement store and just think, oh, I've read probiotics are good, so then I just buy a probiotic randomly and just take that. So I wouldn't do that. I'm not currently doing sauerkraut. I was never really a fan of that, so when I thought I didn't need to have it anymore, I wasn't too upset. I used to have quite a bit of kefir. I don't have kefir anymore. I haven't really had yogurt. If I was fine in the future, a bit of yogurt now and then, I wouldn't really have, now thinking I wouldn't really see a problem in that. But it's not like I'm seeking out probiotics that I think people are, and I might have done in the past. Yeah, and if you just let me know if the chat is still running, because I can't see anything coming from it.
Yeah, sorry, mine disconnected, but I'm back now. Chat seems fine though.
Okay, if anyone can hear this and pop something in the chat, just let me know. Yeah, because I got nothing in the chat. So I'll just carry on doing questions off my phone until someone can post something in the chat. Or until I see something in the chat. These are very specific dietary questions, so quote on any of these. Fagan says, is rice okay? So broad that, yeah, it's going to depend on, for me, where you're at. I think before I was diagnosed, and even after I was diagnosed, before I was diagnosed, I used to eat some, whole grain carbohydrates, so brown rice or brown whole wheat pasta. That I don't do anymore. Soon after being diagnosed, when I did eat brown rice, then I would soak it. So I'd do that quite elaborately, soaking grains and things like that if I have them. Now I lean towards more having refined grains because they would be easier for me to digest. So yeah, you've got a lower mineral count in that, but not as harsh on the digestion. So I eat white rice now and then, but that's going to depend on how it is for you personally.
Sorry, mine is struggling hard.
Yeah, so we're just struggling with the internet. Sorry, guys. I still got nothing in the chat, so I don't even know if anyone's still here. Yeah, I'm going to keep going, guys. If it's off, it's off. So, next question was, you said you don't eat muscle meats. So, what are the best sources of animal proteins, and which animals would you stay away from, if any? So, this is a cool question, and obviously this is just for me, so I can speak freely about this. I do eat muscle meats, but I don't go out of my way to only eat that. Ideally, I'm trying to get a more balanced source of amino acids, so trying to get more gelatin, so more glycine, proline, certain amino acids that you wouldn't necessarily get abundance of in muscle meat. So when I do eat meats, I try, or what I do have a lot of at the moment, just because it's easy, is ground beef or mince. So I get a good quality source of that, beef mince. And then we do some springbok or venison. So if we can get some of the more stewing meat, sort of like oxtail or shin or something like that, then we'll slow cook those. And then other forms of protein, or try once a week a bit of seafood, whether it's prawns, calamari. Haven't quite done oysters yet, but the seafood's been generally fairly new for me. So I really made a point of adding those in for different minerals. And then some non-fatty fish, so white fish, sort of like sole, I've had quite a bit of. We don't really seem to have too much seafood here in South Africa, so that's been a bit difficult to get. And then I do a bit of dairy and eggs. Excuse me, so milk, cheese, and then eggs I have a bit of. Yeah, so which animals would I avoid, if any? So I don't really eat pork. Pork and chicken can be quite high in polyunsaturated fats or unsaturated fats. So really, because of the feeds that they get, but also because they're not ruminants, they don't convert the food necessarily into saturated fat. So I'm trying to avoid polyunsaturated fat as far as possible. So if I do eat chicken, it's erratically, maybe once every 2 weeks, where I used to eat that a few times a week. So that's been quite a big change for me recently. Yeah, and then pork, if I wanted to eat it, now and then, fine, but I don't. It's not really in my routine, so I don't really seek out pork to eat. So summary of that: dairy and eggs pretty much every day, seafood and maybe liver once a week, chicken maybe every 2 weeks, and then just try and mix up the beef, lamb, those sort of ruminants, and then venison, but not too much muscle meat. So we do quite a bit of bone broth, and then try and do sort of stew or those sort of cuts of meat instead of just always eating steak. I might be wrong, but I think something like mince might be a bit better than steak, because you're getting a sort of mix of meat that's ground up in that, if you're getting a good quality mince. So that's what I look for. Next question was, this is all health questions, so hopefully someone's enjoying this. I still got nothing out the chat, so sorry guys. Yeah, sorry guys, thanks for staying on. I see I've still got a few people, but it's been a bit of a difficult one with the internet, so I appreciate that. The next question was, do you ever make smoothies? What would you recommend in a smoothie? So this has been a cool one that's sort of progressed for me. So when I first got diagnosed, I went to the health trend, green smoothies and that stuff, and correlation, but I didn't really get much better at that stage. So that was sort of raw spinach or kale with spirulinas and maybe hemp protein powders and not much fruit, and I can't remember what else I put in there, maybe water. But at the moment, I don't do smoothies. Like I said, I'm obviously quite cold, so I don't seek out cold liquids much at all, and I don't really drink much water. I'm not thirsty. So I've stopped just mindlessly consuming water and cold liquids that I just must drink because it's healthy. So I haven't done smoothies. If I was going to do a smoothie, it would be based around foods I eat now. So I don't know, ice cream, or probably more like a milkshake, because I'm trying to get more calorie dense, more metabolically improving foods. So they're probably based around milk or ice cream, so dairy. And then fruits, honey. It sort of gives away where my trends have gone, but it's gone from that traditional raw greens, raw seeds, raw nuts or seed protein powders, bitter herbs, gone away from that towards more calcium-rich, calorie-rich, sort of sugar-rich foods. So I'd probably do more fruits, but I wouldn't necessarily make a smoothie. If I wanted to do that, I'd probably just have, I don't know, collagen and milk or something like that, and put some honey in it. I wouldn't necessarily blend that up. But if you wanted to, cool, put some berries or some fruit, sweet fruits with a more glycine or collagen-based protein powder, and then dairy is what I would do if I was doing that. And then Fagan says, is Coke not a processed food? And I'm not sure what she's getting at here, but I think as far as I know, Coke is a processed food. So Fagan's trying to expose me here, but there's images going around on the internet of me drinking Coca-Cola. And it's funny because I actually said 2016, or when I first was starting my health journey, things like sugar and whatever were responsible for illness. And if you saw what I eat now, it's completely different to when I first started thinking I was eating healthy. So the thing for me is I'm just not scared of sugar anymore. I used to feel, it's once again just published media, sugar's bad for you. But just reading a lot of stuff about sugars and stress hormones and carbohydrates, I'm not against more sweet fruits, honey, sugar, things like that. I'm not saying Coca-Cola is a great product, but it's I'm not scared of sugar like I was before, and that's been quite cool as well. It's been quite freeing this year to not be scared of, this is a good food and this is a bad food, and if I eat this bad food, then I'm going to get myasthenia again. Or just maybe what those foods are. So there's certain foods now that I know I'm avoiding those, but there's other foods now that I'm like, that's a raw sugar. It's the same as once that fruit's broken down. It's a net just sucrose. Yes, there's some things in there that aren't perfect, but that's not causing your issues. It's your stress that's causing your issues. So sometimes lowering that stress is more useful than avoiding certain foods or even fasting for me at that time. So very individual, but I think that question was probably just to dig in a bit about, why am I eating certain foods now that I wouldn't have touched, 2 years ago because I was eating healthy. How much fruit would I eat in a day? It depends. So like I said, I've been a bit of a sluggish digestive system, especially this year. On the back of, to give a bit of context to this, being diagnosed with Graves' disease, was put on thyroid suppression medication. So basically that was from 2015 to the end of 2018. I realized that something's not going, or I finally realized that this is not working. My system is just getting slower and slower. I'm getting colder and colder. I don't think the numbers that they're testing are adding up with how I'm feeling. And I once again just stopped being scared that I was going to go back into a hyperthyroid phase or overactive thyroid. And that's also been quite freeing for me. So I don't eat too much fruit at the moment because I said I've really stayed away from liquids. So fruit for me is pretty cold. So especially in winter, my temperature's been really cold. I've been freezing. It's not like I naturally reach for a fruit in that situation. So for me at the moment, I don't eat much fruit. I was having quite a bit of orange juice. I did have some berries, like blueberries or strawberries, more in the summertime. So we'll see now in the summertime what I eat more of. But for the wintertime now, I had a bit of apricot jam, but no actual fruits per day besides having orange juice and the odd berry. If there was desserts or something like that, then I'd have some berries. This is quite a cool one. When cooking, what spices or herbs do you use? Is that not a concern? So my spice cupboard here at home is fairly simple. I've moved more and more away from it. Try and keep stuff simple, keep stuff plain. So if you open my fridge, you wouldn't see much in terms of sauces or condiments or anything like that. Just because I don't realize I don't really need it. So it's not like I'm not allowing myself to have it. I just don't need it. And a lot of that stuff just becomes habit. So in terms of spices, what we have a few herbs in the cupboard. So maybe oregano, thyme, parsley, rosemary. Those are the normal ones we have. And then I think we've got a bit of turmeric, ginger, and cinnamon. So, and then salt, and I barely use pepper now as well. So pretty much salt vary between sea salt, Himalayan salt. Put that on cooking, and then some of the herbs. But I've also, you sort of look from when you're having digestive issues, are the herbs giving you any benefit, or could it just be irritating you? So I haven't really been that big on using too much in the way of herbs lately. I'm going to try to refresh the chat just to see if I can see anything. So I'm not quite sure what this is going to do. So if you just bear with me for a second. So I just want to say, yeah, thank you. So thank you to the guys that have tuned in. I know I've tried to do something different here. I didn't really have an MG focus. I'm more trying to get this one to try and get friends involved. Because it's been really MG focused, but I've been trying now to sort of bring it together. So in the beginning of the stream, I sort of explained why I wanted to try and bring friends in, why am I sort of trying to speak to myasthenia people. So I think I've refreshed the chat now, so now I can see a bit more stuff. So it was really, this is for me to try and hang out with friends, and hopefully it's going to, bring myasthenia people as well. And sort of, I'm not trying to force anything on anyone, especially with, the myasthenia people or other people. It's more to try and engage in discussion, because I think everyone is, you can be closed-minded at times, and you think like, I've done this, it doesn't work, or whatever, or I've done this, it does work, therefore you must do this. And if you understand my story or what I've been doing, you realize that that's not what I'm trying to do. And as I've matured in this, the last few years, I've realized that, forcing it on anyone is not going to work. But I really want to see people recover. I really do believe that people can recover. And that's why I want to share the information. If someone is offended by it, I think it's possible, then that's fine. But it's still, I need to try and share this information and give the people that are looking for it a chance to stumble across the information and read up on that. So I've got the chat back here. The last message I've got, Riku saying that's hilarious. So I don't know if anyone types anything after that. If you guys could let me know. So I'll just scroll back up. Toby said we could. Riku said the internet was fatigued. I think it's still a bit fatigued. That's funny. That is good. Good on Riku. Good on Justin. Ian, if your internet is good, just let me know if I can change back to that. Okay. Well then. Okay, so I'm going to keep it on the internet, but unfortunately it's not fantastic, guys. So yeah. But I'm going to keep it going. So it's a small group of inside mates here, so I appreciate that. Toby, Ian, Riku, Fagan, if you guys are still there, let's keep it going. Let's do some of these questions. So after the jokes about fatiguing the internet, I'm sure Justin enjoyed those. Okay, Fags put some in the questions in the chat. I got your questions off the phone. Did the soaking not help enough with breaking down the stuff versus the refined stuff? So good question for Rick here. And Riku stayed with me for the last, most of the last 2 years, or 2 of the last 3 years, let's say. And yeah, it's difficult even for people that have been with me to understand. So I think it's even harder for other people to understand. But something's gotten worse with me in terms of digestion over the last 3 years. So I've made these improvements on the outside, and everyone goes, "But you're looking good. Your symptoms are gone. Things must be going better." But in terms of internally, my system has just got slower and slower and slower. And that led me to believe that the thyroid medication that I was taking was incorrect. And that's based off other ideas that I've read, excuse me, where underactive thyroid through a stress situation can present as an overactive thyroid. So cortisol and other stress hormones can actually lower your TSH. And the main diagnostic tool for Graves' disease is being a low or suppressed TSH. And I had that low TSH. So that's why I was diagnosed with Graves. And then since then, obviously after that, nothing changed, didn't fix anything. And I kept having this low TSH, but being on thyroid medication and being scared that, I'm going to slip back into this overactive thyroid. So I think that my thyroid was low, but then I was suppressing it even further. So that didn't work out well for me. So I think in terms of grains and things like that, I've struggled to digest a lot of things. So it's difficult to say, would soaking and things like that have helped. I've had issues with digestion for a number of years now. So I've generally avoided more and more things as I've gotten on, as my thyroid sort of got more and more suppressed. It's difficult for me to say. For me personally, was it enough? I don't know. I probably wouldn't try brown rice or something like that now, but I've avoided most grains. So in general, if I was fine, would I rather have white rice or brown rice? It depends what you're looking at it for. So if you just want a net carb, and an easy digestion, then white rice is fine. If you think the nutrients in brown rice is what you need, I think there's probably easier ways to get nutrients. If you wanted to hedge and have a bit of both, fine, as long as you prepared it properly. But I don't think rice is necessarily nutrient dense. And even if you look on the internet and you think, oh wow, there's a lot of nutrients in that, the chance that you can get all of those nutrients out of the fiber is unlikely. So I wouldn't be too concerned about getting nutrition from rice, for example.
My internet's dead, so I'm not going to go on the Wi-Fi because of my problems.
What do you think about adding organ meats to your diet? This is cool. So this is actually one thing I wanted to chat to Toby about. Toby's been quite busy, I think, of late. We haven't really spoken much, but it's big in the books of overactive thyroid, and it's big in the myasthenia books. There's cases of myasthenia gravis post one of the world wars, and they said when they gave the people a highly nutritious diet afterwards, including lots of liver, they seemed to recover. So organ meats I think are quite good, but once again, it's going to depend on where you are. So if I went back now and had organ meats, for example, when I was diagnosed, I think that would be a good idea for me back then. The problem is right now, I think with my thyroid being so suppressed, that I can't really handle that much vitamin A or retinol. So I think depending on where you are, if your thyroid's firing and you're getting, you've got good cholesterol levels, you've got good cholesterol, good thyroid, then vitamin A will be useful to turn that into, progesterone, pregnenolone, testosterone, hormones that you need. So, yeah, I have been having liver once a week, but I might stretch it now a bit to once every 2 weeks, or in the summertime maybe more, but in the wintertime I think it's been probably a bit too much based off the amount of dairy milk and cheese that I eat, and then eggs, I think my vitamin A level is sort of high enough for my current thyroid level. So I think the organ meats, although really good for certain B vitamins, I think that's why it was also important for myasthenia. I'm struggling with vitamin A. So as long as you're getting outside in the sun, your cholesterol levels are good. I think organ meats are then a fantastic way to give you more nutrition, and then also to get you that vitamin A and create those positive steroid hormones. For me personally, it's just about a balance. So you got to sort of know, try and figure out where I'm at. It's difficult to test your vitamin A levels accurately, or I think it's quite expensive. Where vitamin D you can test, but once again, what's a good level, that's also debatable. So good sun exposure, and then I think organ meats can bring you some good nutrition, but I also am cautious not to overdo it. So I think it's good. Nothing off topic here, Toby. So might be off topic, but don't worry about that. Do you grill your meats, and what oil do you use? So I used to do quite a lot of it just in the oven. So I don't know what you consider grilling, depending on where you're from. I don't know if it's a barbecue or if it's in the oven, but I'll just explain what I do. So I do a lot of pan fried or pan seared if I do mince or seafood, being prawns or calamari. If we do chicken breast, we'll just do it in the oven. And the oil that I use is coconut oil, or we use some of the fat from the beef bones that we roast, so from the broth. So that's pretty much saturated fat. So I use saturated fats, being beef fat or tallow, but it's from meat that I've bought, not separately. Butter, and then coconut oil. Those are the ones I use, and then I'll pan sear in that quite a lot, just based on time. And one of the challenges for me is also to try and make this work in modern life. I still cook all of my food, but I used to take 2 hours, 3 hours a day cooking dinner, and I unfortunately don't have time for that now. So try and do it as quickly as possible. So as a cooking oil, I use coconut oil if I need to add oil, but that's pretty much it. What symptoms did I have that gave you an idea that I had thyroid issues? So I didn't actually know. The myasthenia got diagnosed, and then when I went back to the doctor for follow-up tests, just to confirm the myasthenia via the blood test or the CT scan, I can't remember which one it was at the time, but then the doctors, because of the correlation between myasthenia and thyroid issues, they had tested my thyroid antibody levels as well. So they're not even sure why they did it. Because I didn't really look too ill in terms of thyroid at the time. I was a bit lean, but it wasn't like drastic. So that was that they just tested for it. They found out that my TSH was low. I had an irregular heartbeat. Sort of presented with really classical Graves symptoms once they looked at it. So pretty lean. I think I had a bit of a swollen thyroid, where now it's pretty much flat. You wouldn't see it. Or it is flat, you can't see anything. And irregular heartbeat, but maybe stuff you could have picked up, but I wasn't looking for it, so I didn't know that I had this irregular heartbeat. I think now, looking back, it's possibly was stress symptoms, but it's going to be a tough argument to win, to say that was stress and not actually Graves. But the big thing they diagnose you off is a suppressed TSH. Now Ray would argue that it's not really Graves, it's just cortisol and things that are lowering your TSH. And I think at that stage you can't argue that your body is super stressed. You're not going to get myasthenia or an autoimmune condition, whether it's Graves or Hashimoto's, if you're in good health. So for me, it is naturally that you're obviously stressed. So that's why I think why that happened. Obviously, I can't have it over. I can't change anything I did. I did try and stop medication for that when I was freezing the following year. But then my TSH, went super low again. So I thought, maybe it is an issue. So I stayed on the medication, and my decision was to stay on the medication until they said I could come off. And maybe that didn't work out for me. I am where I am now, but yeah, not comfortable all the time. And I think a lot of that, unfortunately, is due to possibly having suppressed thyroid. So I think you pretty much know, like there's classic thyroid symptoms. So overactive being, your heart's racing, sweating uncontrollably. But it's difficult then when you have myasthenia or another disease, or you're on medications, because then it's very difficult to tell what symptoms are from what, and then what's a reaction to what. So it's one of the reasons why I stopped looking at symptoms, stopped looking at, what does my eye look like, or what does something look like, and try to think or feel more long term, because then it's easier to not get sucked into yo-yoing based on how you feel every day. If you guys are still there in the chat, I don't know if I should go for a refresh again. Maybe I will. Or if somebody could just send a message in the chat, even if it's just a hi, just to make sure that it is still loading up. Still waiting for that. If someone could just pop a one in the chat there. I see nothing, so I might just give it a refresh. Yeah, just give me a second. Yeah, so some of the other things, people have asked, there's sort of things that I've changed in terms of just trying not to do things that you don't know why you're doing it. In terms of someone said, a certain thing was healthy. Are we sure that that's healthy? And if you enjoy doing it, it's one thing. But if you don't enjoy doing something, and you're only doing it because you think it's healthy, then it's probably a good idea to make sure that what you're doing is actually healthy, because you're not enjoying it and it might be worse for you, then it's really a waste of time. So two things about that for me is drinking excessive amounts of water. And people laugh at me now saying, I changed my mind on drinking water, because when I got diagnosed and read these health things, everyone said, drink 2 to 3 liters of water every day, and that's on top of eating all these fruits and vegetables. So yeah, I did that for a long time, and obviously being freezing and things like that recently, the water was really uncomfortable to drink that much water, and also being that cold after drinking the water. So that's one thing I've really just tried to look into more, is why are we doing certain things just because we read it's healthy, to understand why you're actually doing these things. Yeah, I got nothing more coming out of the chat, so I might call it there. If guys are still there, you can just let me know very quickly. Yeah, like pretty quickly.
I can't even connect us.
Yeah, so thanks for sticking with it, guys. I appreciate it. It's been a bit of a tough one in terms of connectivity. I apologize for that. Like I said, I'll try and do something more frequent in this regard. Yeah, just to chat, get ideas, and the whole point of the chat and doing the live stream is to get back and forth. Not for me to sit here and say this is science, this is why I do this or whatever, but just to say, question why we're doing certain things, why we're living in certain ways, and really, I'm trying to improve my health, and hopefully off the back of that, people can improve their health as well. I see Fagan's still there. I don't know if anyone else is. Yeah, but I appreciate the support. Thanks guys for coming on and asking the questions, and I appreciate it's the people that have been with me, have experienced a lot of what a lot of what I've been through, especially in the last few years. And it's cool that, really genuinely appreciate that you guys, Justin, Riku, Ian, Fagan, Toby now adding on as well. Just, it's all about if can grow sort of, sharpening each other, reading certain things, understanding certain things, not just, this is fact, this is why we do it, done, and never improve. I'm trying to improve. It wasn't about getting to this point and saying, oh, cool, now I can go back and live, how I was. My thing was, something wasn't working, that's why I got ill, and that's why I want to keep improving. So I know, like, digestion now, it's not going great. Cool, I can improve that and I can do better. So, that's what it's been about for me. And it's been quite interesting this year, breaking sort of trends or seeing shocked faces when I eat something or drink something that people would conventionally not associate with me eating in the last few years because it's not healthy. And that's to show that it doesn't prove anything if I do it, but also just tries to break down those barriers of, do we really understand what is healthy or what isn't? So, thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll call it there. Have a good evening.